Beautiful, don't you think?
What?
The sunrise.
Terrific.
Hi, I'm Aaron.
Hi, I'm Jonas.
And I'm Zorianna. Today we welcome a special guest, Jonas Cuaron. He co-wrote Gravity with his father, Alfonso Cuaron. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So my first question is, where did the idea come from?
The idea was to be able to create a movie where for 90 minutes you had the audience grab to their seats, where the action and the suspense never stopped, but where that didn't mean that you couldn't also talk about different themes and juggle, have almost a philosophical discourse.
So what made you decide on space? I mean, that's quite a very specific topic. Were you interested in space? Do you know much about it?
By the time we wrote the movie, our main concern first was to create a character and a journey. Space came secondary. It just seemed kind of to be the best setting for the story. We wanted a movie where the setting would become a metaphor for a lot of what the themes the character's going through, and space seemed a perfect setting for it. It's a place where you're literally separated from the rest of human life.
Is space confining for a story or expansive for a story?
In a way, it was very expansive. There was lots of... At first, I was really scared because when you start with a movie of two characters floating in space, you think, like, what am I going to do with it? There's not much they can interact with. But then you start realizing that the physics of space and the actual space exploration, like what we've created, and it's very rich.
You need some help there, man? No, don't wait for us.
It's stuck!
Man down! Man down!
So what was it like bringing this idea to your father? Had you brought ideas to him before? Were you nervous?
It was a weird process because we didn't plan to do it. We started talking one night about this type of movies and the idea of doing a movie like this, and it turned into an all-nighter, and then next thing I knew is I was writing the script.
That's awesome.
And how do you write? Do you guys write together, or do you both go do certain scenes and check in with each other later? Is there a lot of emailing back and forth, or late nights with coffee and...
A little bit of everything. We came up with the story over that first night. Over the course of that whole long night, we knew exactly kind of like all the plot points and the specific things that happened. And then it took like a month where, since we were in different parts of the globe, we did it over Skype. He got the nice hours. He got morning to night, and I got night to morning. But
was the main character always supposed to be a woman, or was it a male?
No, since the first draft, you know, I'm pretty bad at coming up with character names, so the first draft, it used to be called The Woman. And we knew we wanted a woman because it's a movie about a character's journey, and in that journey, she reaches a rebirth. It's a movie about rebirth and how, by overcoming adversities, we can have almost a metaphorical rebirth. So we wanted to have this female presence that kind of like became a metaphor for this fertility and this source of life.
Did you even anticipate that you'd be getting credit for creating a strong woman character in a time where Hollywood complains that there's not enough of that?
Well, at the point I was just creating this character, then I have to say, you know, I owe a lot to Sandra, and like the job she did is amazing. When we started writing, we knew it's a movie where part of the gamble we wanted to do, like part of our idea was to make a movie where only one character carries the whole emotional drive for the audience. And you know, the theory sounded nice, but as a writer, I kept being really scared that like people would just not connect with the piece. And I think that's something that Sandra did great, which she made that character so human that it allows us to be in the journey with her.
Houston, this is Mission Specialist Ryan Stone. I am off structure and I'm drifting. Do you copy? Anyone?
So what was it like when you were actually on set or collaborating with your dad? Did you still feel the father-son thing, or were you guys, you know, on equal ground?
In that sense, I have to say my dad's a great collaborator, because like at the moment every time we would sit down to write, it was just about collaborating and hearing each other's ideas. And if we would ever disagree with something, I tend to think that that's where the best ideas came, because we would disagree and talk and a third idea would come up.
Right.
So in a way, that's why I like collaborating with him, because the hierarchy disappears and we get to be horizontal for one.
When the actors signed on and you had Sandra Bullock and you had George Clooney, did you have to refine the writing on the set to suit their acting styles a little bit more, or was it pretty much what you guys wrote on the page was what the words that they said?
Well, on the actions, we had to remain pretty stiff. Like, actually, when you read the script, the images you imagine while reading on the script are pretty similar to what you see in the movie, because since it was such a technically challenging film, we had to be very specific on the script. But then I was so happy when George and Sandra came on board, because it's a movie that depends on the two of them. Like, there's not too many secondaries to, like, help.
Just Ed Harris. Exactly. It's Houston.
And then also, it's a movie that has very little dialogue. So the few times that there's dialogues, as a writer, you have to be very concise to, like, spit out all the things you need to say in, like, only one page. And you have to choose the right words. So working with George and Sandra was a great experience. I always say that, like, before they came on board, we had mapped the harmonies. But when they came on board, like, the melody started existing.
You have Sandra Bullock, you have George Clooney. Those are two very high-profile actors. They can open movies, and they will naturally bring people into the theaters on their names alone. But this movie is more than just a Sandra Bullock film or a George Clooney film. Were you surprised at this success?
Yeah, I mean, for me, this whole experience has been really flattering. When we started writing the script, we wanted it to be a film that connected with the audience. That was our main idea on, like, bringing down the narrative to its bare basics, which we thought that, like, if you did that, you could create an almost more emotional connection, more direct connection with the audience. But, you know, when you're writing and then 4.5 years to make the movie, you are always worried that, like, maybe the whole experiment's not gonna work. So the fact that, like, the audience is reacting so well to it is really flattering.
Why do you think they are? Like, what is it that you think they're connecting with? Is it the spirituality of it? Is it Sandra Bullock's loss and redemption? Or what is it that you think that's really making everyone really just feel for this film?
Well, our whole take was that, like, if you bring down a narrative to its basics, to the archetypes, then you're creating something that everyone can project their own thing. So you have the character of Ryan who's running away from the debris, but the debris is a metaphor for adversity. So as an audience, you can watch Ryan's journey and, like, put your own adversities subconsciously onto that debris. So I guess that was our idea. I think that a lot of what also helped create that connection is Sandra's work, because she creates such a human character that I think, like, it makes you want to be in the journey with her. So
the score of the film is a very important part, and it definitely helps to immerse the audience, because that's where all the weird sounds come from. Was that part of, was that written into the script? Did you guys decide that later, to have the score be that way?
When the script, we had clear markings of two things. One's, like, the moments where we would need music, and the fact that in space there's no sound, we kept marking all the silences. And, like, I think from a beginning we knew that that relationship between the silence and space and that score was going to be very important, because not only does the score help you on the emotional journey, but, like, the score makes the silence more noticeable. I think if you didn't have that score, people would not notice the silence. They would notice people shuffling on their seats or the sound of popcorn. So in a way, that score makes the silence way more noticeable. And the silence for us was really important.
And it's such an interesting score. It's not like any other score I've ever heard before.
No, what I'm so happy when I heard it in Atmos is that the score is immersive. Like, we wanted the whole experience to be like the instruments are, like, floating all around you.
And what have you learned from your father's career, or some of the mistakes or things that he has made that you can now apply to your filmmaking career?
Never make a movie in space. Unless you want to spend 5 years developing technology to make it happen.
Hey, the time paid off. It's a wonderful film.
Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Cheers!
Cheers.
To gravity.